My name is Rahul Kumar. I am the instructor for this 1 hour Hadoop webinar for you guys. So, just giving an introduction about myself, I have an industry experience of around 13 years now, and I worked in the big data, Hadoop technologies, Amazon Web Services, Cloud, Java, Linux. This is my background, and currently working as an infrastructure engineer here. So, I'm going to be the instructor for this for this particular webinar, and so let's quickly start that. And today's topic of the webinar is a day in the life of Hadoop administrator. So at the end of this webinar, you will know about the daily tasks a Hadoop administrator do, cluster monitoring tools, how fault tolerance is maintained in the cluster, demonstration on Hadoop high availability, yarn high availability, as well as upgrade. So basically, just to give you an idea, I'm going to give you a bit of idea what does a Hadoop administrator actually do on a daily basis. And at the end of this webinar, I'm going to show you some very typical tasks of a Hadoop administrator with the help of Hadoop high availability, which is actually your name nodes high availability, yarn high availability, which can be done with the help of resource manager high availability, and how we can do an upgrade from Hadoop version 1 to Hadoop version 2. Okay, so let's quickly start that. Let's say, what does a Hadoop administrator do on a daily basis? So you come to the office. Uh, what is the first thing you will do on your cluster? Okay, the first thing is you monitor your cluster. You will find out what all services are running, what all services are stopped, or are there any services which are into the which are not running, or let's say into the critical state. Anything related to the cluster or its session or whatever it is related to the cluster, you want to monitor everything, right? So certainly it's a typical task, okay, to resolve everything in the first place. If you have got like many clusters available, but if there are like 3 or 4 clusters, then you can easily do it with the help of some cluster monitoring tool like Nagios or Ganglia. Okay, so and then if you have built enterprise clusters like Cloudera or let's say Hortonworks data platform, then there are other tools as well like Apache, Ambari, or Cloudera Manager, through which you can not only just monitor the cluster, you can restart your services, you can uh, administrate your services in the best possible way by deleting the data, or let's say by providing the access. I mean, I do it on a daily basis. So let's say I come into the morning. So like my shift starts at 9 o'clock, usual 9. Okay, I go in the morning. Okay, finds out first for my cluster that okay, what all services are stopped, or let's say what all developers issues are there. Okay, and what is the exact problem they are facing, right? So from the cluster, let's say sometimes they get these socket exceptions, they get the timed out exceptions, or let's say unknown host exceptions. So sometimes developers are making a mistake, sometimes our cluster is not working properly. You need to do the housekeeping on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. So all these things help, right, in bringing your cluster up and running. So you need to plan, you need to do a cluster planning, and then review all the incidents or the changes which has happened in the week, or let's say in the month, and then accordingly keep progressing and build the cluster, or let's say upgrade the cluster according to that strategy, right? So when we talk about the cluster planning part, okay, so before you build the cluster itself, you need to plan like, okay, what is your hardware, and then how many, what is the role of the data, what is which node will host the name node, which node will host the data nodes, or let's say zookeeper servers, journal nodes, Hue, Impala, Solar services, because we have got multiple services in the Hadoop cluster. So just taking a typical example of Cloudera distribution, including Apache Hadoop, which actually hosts many other services apart from HDFS and Yarn. So you need to decide on the configuration of your nodes, and then accordingly build the cluster. So typical slave node hardware configuration, if you see here, that 1 gigabit Ethernet network, and then 2 into 6 core CPU, 64 gigs of memory with SAS disk drives, 6 gigabit per second, and 12 into 3 terabytes SATA 2 disk drive, sorry, 7200 RPMs, 2 into 1 gigabit Ethernet card, and note CPU features such as Intel hyper-threading and QPR desirable. I mean, these are just the basic features certainly we should have in our hardware. And a lot of things from the operating system side, right? So if you're using the Red Hat Enterprise Linux 6.5 or 7 version, swap should be off there. Then how you're mounting your disks there, a lot of hardware specific side of things and the software side of things from the operating system. So this is the same. I mean, when you are using the high-end configuration, then let's say about the CPU or the memory, disk controller, similar things, but just giving an idea like what is the midline configuration and what is the high-end configuration. So the major difference is about the memory, CPU, and your hard disk drives. So in the midline configurations, you can see 12 into 3 terabytes disk drives with 64 gigs of memory, and with high-end, you have got 24 into 1 terabyte. SSF nearline SAS disks and 96 gigabytes of memory. So that's the major one, and the network also, which is 10 gigabit Ethernet. So in the midline, you have got 1 gigabit Ethernet. So you need to design your cluster and then decide what all roles you want to put on these cluster nodes. Because cluster role, putting the roles on the cluster is very important, and you need to always understand that which host it can be the best host to host the, let's say, name node, basically the master roles of the cluster. Okay, so if you can see here, executive few regular utility tasks, developing and running files mergers so that the small files and directories are our data supplies create would become bigger and fewer, because certainly you want to have more data hosted on your cluster as much as possible. So the best idea is to do the backup and recovery on a daily basis, according to the data you are posting on a cluster, as well as the metadata of the roles of these services. How will you back up them? How will you recover them in case of any failures? So you need to always plan all these things in advance, and then certainly according to the incident management and the change management you're doing on the fly during the cluster run itself, you need to plan those things and then make the changes on the cluster. So Cloudera, just to give an idea here, CDH, Cloudera distribution, including Apache Hadoop, basically provides a backup and recovery mechanism to back up your whole cluster itself. You just not only back up the data if you want, you can back up your whole metadata of the cluster, because the distribution does not only include the HDFS or YARN services, it includes your Uzi services, Solar services, Hue services, Impala services, Zookeeper, Hive, HBase. All these other services are also being hosted by CDH. So it's a critical task, as well as it's a bit typical task to host these services. I remember, a couple of days back when I was building the cluster, okay, it was a new cluster, and I actually corrupted the file system metadata. Okay, but thankfully, because I planned my cluster accordingly, okay, I had the backup of the metadata. Okay, so the way to back up the metadata and then to again format the cluster, like how will you actually put the same thing into the cluster? It's a bit challenging, as well as a bit typical thing, right? So to do. So I did that, and then I was again fine. I don't mind doing some R&D on the cluster at that point of time, because I know what I'm planning, what I'm doing on the cluster. So in this course, generally we do all this stuff, right? So when we are taking this course, generally I go for the Hadoop administration course. I'm the instructor. So I always tell guys, like when you are into the infrastructure, because this is all infrastructure. So when you are into the infrastructure part of the IT, right? So how should you plan your things in advance? Okay, how will you build the cluster? How will you deploy these services? What all roles should you put on the services? Or let's say a typical cases of high availability federations, or let's say when you have multiple projects, how will you provide the security to them? All these things are being covered in this course with us. So achieving high availability, which we are going to talk about later on, as a hands-on, like how will you achieve the high availability to the cluster. So this is another major activity on the cluster which you will be doing on a mostly daily basis, right? Because let's say not daily, but let's say every week, because you need to plan your cluster. You have built the cluster, now you have got some resources. how will you distribute those resources? How will you manage those resources between multiple users? So that's a bit challenging task because your users know, okay, that I need, let's say I have got 100 gigs of memory on my cluster. How will you distribute in multiple projects, right? So there's always a fight which will happen between the resources, okay, between various projects. So how will you distribute the resources? How will you schedule those resources with the cluster? Which we always talk about in the job scheduling and the configuration. So basically, Hadoop has got multiple schedulers for that. Thankfully, like we have got uh, capacity scheduler, we have got pair scheduler, and we have got FIFO scheduler. So the scheduler which we use in our scenarios is pair scheduler as well as capacity scheduler according to the requirements of the users. So then analyzing the failed tasks. Okay, so lot of people, I mean, I see just one issue I'm sharing with you guys. Uh, 2 or 3 months back, I mean, what when we build the gateway nodes for the users, okay, what they were doing is like they were I mean, most of the users, right? So you can see even like even as myself or let's say you guys, what do? You if you are running something and in between you found out that okay, this is not running properly. You what do? You always do a Control Z or Control C, okay, which means you kill the task in between, but it does not actually kill the process. So process keeps on running from in the background, right? So you what you do is you kill the process on the front end, and you can run some other job or let's say some other command. But at the from the back end, I mean, this process is running in the background, right? So which actually takes the resources of your server. That is a problem. Okay, so how will you analyze those things? How will you allow these tasks to be killed automatically if there is anything like that, or how will you plan those things in advance? Okay, which can actually bring down the whole cluster, which can actually which will not allow the jobs of other users to run on the cluster because you don't have, let's say, proper file descriptors defined, or let's say limit of the memory or the users defined. So you need to plan that kind of thing. So we'll talk about this high availability of yarn as well in a minute. uh, Evaluating new host request, as I just said, on a daily basis, you always do, right? So you get the daily requirements. I want to integrate my Hadoop cluster with the Teradata cluster or with the Netezza cluster, or let's say I want to deploy these packages. I want to these are my requirements for the cluster. I want to change the memory of the Spark. I want to change the memory of Impala, or let's say Hive. Uh, uh, all these kind of things will keep on coming, right? So you need to always think about that, okay, what is the impact on the other users, right? So you might be able to finish the, or let's say fulfill the requirements of one user, but how it will affect the other users, that is one of the critical things you will be seeing the infrastructure. And then in the last, updates and upgrades. Okay, because uh, just taking example of like Apache Hadoop specifically, where you will see a lot of minor upgrades are there, and then the major one also is there sometime. But you need to upgrade it from time to time so that users can benefit from the newer features. Okay, yes, that's rightly said that okay, we have got some project, and project requirements are always static, or let's say they are always freezed in the beginning. But in this agile environment, you all know, like when you have got a lot of development happening, sometimes users, they want to do an R&D as well on the development clusters, right? So they want to always find out like, what this new feature is and how it will impact or how it will benefit our project in positive or let's say negative way, whatever it is, right? So how will you upgrade? How will you plan your upgrade? Because I mean, on a daily basis, I mean, I generally get a lot of requests to upgrade the cluster, because in Cloudera builds, if you see, Cloudera has upgraded. It does upgrade their versions very quickly. Let's say minor versions only. So 5.1 to 5.2, 5.2 to 5.2.1, 5.3.2, 5.3.4. So a lot of these kind of version upgrades are happening, and the major challenge is a lot of bug fixing happens. Okay, it's not only about the services you are using, it's about the bug fixing also, which happens on a daily basis, right? So how will you plan those kind of things? How will you plan that, okay, these are my 5 clusters, I don't want to upgrade them on a daily basis, but let's say after 1 month I want to baseline them to some of these specific version. So how will you do them? How will you do that kind of thing? How will you upgrade your cluster? So here basically I'm just going to give you an idea about how to upgrade your cluster from Hadoop version 1, which was an older version, to a newer version, which is Hadoop version 2. Okay, so these things happens a lot, and you need to plan it accordingly, according to the organization. Try and finalize new solutions if you're trying to test and benchmark new projects, like just taking an example of Splunk. Okay, so Splunk is a tool basically to analyze the data, okay, data logs basically. So you analyze your incidents, or let's say logs, what kind of issues are there. You want to integrate your cluster with the uh, chef or puppet kind of utilities, so that you can always bring the newer configuration management tools for the testing and production environments. How will you plan that kind of thing? So, and execute some fewer data warehousing responsibilities as well, like just inserting the data, creating the databases for Hive, HBase, providing the security to the users, creating the namespace for HBase environment, or let's say creating the using the beeline shells of Hive, providing the access to the Hue environments, integrating your cluster with the LDAP or Active Directory. How will you do these kind of things? So executing these fewer DWH responsibilities are also there. Whether upgrade is done with the downtime. So there are two types of upgrades, Manas. Just got a question, guys, that whether upgrade is done with the downtime. There are two types of upgrades today. Okay, one which you can do with the downtime, another which you can do on the fly as well. Okay, certainly it's not recommended, but yes, there is something called rolling update. So with the help of rolling upgrade, you can actually upgrade the cluster without affecting these services. So jobs can still run, cluster can still keep on running, and at the back end it will upgrade the whole thing. Okay, so the recommendation is that take some downtime. Okay, because after upgrade it's very much recommended to do some smoke test as well, to find out the performance of the cluster, whether the cluster is at same state, or has it really tuned, or is it really working well or not. Okay, and then do the handover to the developers, because it can be a major issue after the upgrade or during the upgrade as well. Okay, so both the ways it can happen, with the downtime, without downtime as well. Okay, assisting Hadoop developers, daily support for developers who uses the Hadoop stack. This is quite common, because developers, they will run their job, they will go into the issues, they will certainly break the cluster as well. Okay, without knowingly, unknowingly, that okay, this is we didn't knew about this, and cluster has broken down, this service has gone down, please bring up this service. A lot of such kind of things will keep on happening on a daily basis, and you need to support the developers as well as the projects for that. Checking resources usage and users permissions, managing the users permissions, quotas, etc., like what all permissions are there to which user, and how the quotas are being managed, because it should not be like that one user has taken all the HDFS data. How will you restrict the users from putting let's say not more than 1,000 files, or let's say not more than uh, 500 gigabytes of data? How will you restrict those kind of things, or how will you restrict the users to not peek into the other directories of other users? Let's say, how will you set the permissions on the databases for the users? So those kind of things certainly are a big task, and challenging initially, and then you need to plan those projects, their groups, according to their requirements. Okay, so troubleshooting certainly is another important thing which you will do. This is all common thing, that okay, when you are having a big infrastructure, how will you troubleshoot those services? Okay, so let's do one thing then. Let's see how we can actually plan for the high availability. Okay, what all things are required. So here, what I've done is I've got a couple of virtual machines running, and on top of these virtual machines, I've got the Hadoop cluster. Okay, so let me show you. So I'm using the plain vanilla Apache Hadoop, okay, which is difficult to learn, but once you have learned it, you will be able to easily nail down any other distribution of Hadoop. The reason is it's an bare metal Apache Hadoop. It's like doing everything manually, understanding each and every property before you do any task on the cluster. So in this high availability part, basically I'm using the Hadoop 2.6.0. not the very latest, but it's again very much stable version. The latest one is 2.7.1. Here I'm using 2.6.0 JDK and the Zookeeper server. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring the high availability to the name node and the resource manager. So name node is basically the master of the Hadoop cluster, which is currently the single point of failure. But in Hadoop version 2.6, it has now been upgraded. I mean, you can actually make it highly available. Without name node, you cannot run any service, you cannot do anything on the cluster at all. Okay, that's one important thing. And similarly, you have got the resource manager. Resource manager is the master of the system for job submissions. Without resource manager also, you won't be able to submit any jobs, you won't be able to do any activity on the cluster. Okay, so in this case, uh, let's do one thing. Let's understand. Okay, uh, let's try to enable the high availability. Okay, so first of all, to enable the high availability, we require a couple of daemons, couple of processes. Okay, first is called the journal nodes on all the nodes. So here what I've done is I've got two name node and one data node, as simple as that. So we need to start first the journal node on all these three nodes. So for the quick part, I'll written down some steps here. A bit quick. So here, if you see, I've got three nodes. The IP starts from the 192.168.0.51, 52, and 53, and I've got name node 1, name node 2, and data node 1. So this basically includes my resource manager configurations as well as, I mean, the yarn configurations as well as your HDFS configurations. Okay, so name node 1, name node 2, data node 1 with the journal nodes on all these three nodes first. We have started the processes. Now let's format the name node 1. So formatting name node means creating the metadata directories and starting the name node 1. So you can see right now only the name node process is new. Three journal nodes are still there. So name node has run up. Now we need to do the same thing on the name node 2 as well. And you can see now the name node 2 is also up and running, but both are not highly available. So to make them highly available, we need to put another service inside that, which is called Zookeeper. Okay, so to start the Zookeeper, we'll run the Zookeeper service, Zookeeper daemons on all these three nodes. And now you can see quorum peer main kind of service has also come up, and which will give you the confidence that okay, now the directories, the Zookeeper is also running. You can see I can connect to the Zookeeper server with Zookeeper directory right now inside that. So one question there, that in production generally how many standby name node and secondary name node exists? So first of all, if you have got a standby name node, means if you have got the high availability there, you don't really require the secondary name node. I mean, if you have standby name node, you cannot run the secondary name node. So both cannot run at the same time, first of all. Second thing is there can be only one name node in the cluster. Okay, if you are running one name node, means one will be active and another will be standby. Okay, there can be multiple name nodes with the help of federation. Certainly you can have multiple name nodes, but typically in any of the clusters, because one name node is able to handle at least 4,000 data nodes. So generally no company or no organizations, no enterprise runs the multiple name. Okay, so in production also there will be always one name node, one active name node, and one standby name. Okay, so now the Zookeeper is also running. Let's start our data node as well. You can see now data node is also running with the process ID 1638. Now let's bring the high availability. Okay, so bring the high availability. The most important daemon which we want is Zookeeper failover controller. This Zookeeper failover controller will actually help you to maintain the session state of your name nodes. As you can see, now we have got the high availability directories, and there is nothing inside this directory. Once I will start the Zookeeper failover controller, it will put the data inside this directory as well. So let's start the failover controller now, and now you can see a Zookeeper failover controller is running. So if I just run a small for loop, you can see DFS ZK failover controller. This actually has enabled the high availability. So just showing you the service state. So you can see name node 1 is currently active, and name node 2 is currently in standby mode. Okay, and you can actually monitor the same thing from the web interface as well. If you see, name node 1 is currently in the active mode, and name node 2 in the standby mode. So there's a question from Pradeep. Please tell us about the Zookeeper failure session. So basically, we have got 3 Zookeeper nodes, Pradeep. Okay. First of all, they are already highly available. Okay, because we have got 3 Zookeepers, and just to show you the status of the Zookeeper, one will be the follower, and another will be the leader. Okay, so 2 are followers basically, and one will be the leader out of them. Okay, so even if one of the Zookeeper or two Zookeepers are down, there won't be any impact to the cluster. Okay, but once there are 3 Zookeepers, I mean all the 3 Zookeeper nodes go down, or all the 3 Zookeeper processes go down rather, then certainly you won't be able to achieve the high availability. Okay, your cluster will keep on running, there won't be any impact to the cluster, but yes, the Zookeeper will not run. Okay, so once the Zookeeper is not there, your Zookeeper failover controller will not be able to connect with the Zookeeper, it will not be able to manage the session states. Okay, so the idea is to make always have the Zookeeper up and running. Okay, even if one of the Zookeeper goes down, monitor it successfully and always keep it up and running so that your name nodes should not go down in any of the cases. How to add a new data node to the name node or master node in the cluster? It's quite easy, Bala. To add a new name node, let's go just give you an idea from the basic that okay, bring a new node, bring a physical machine, build the Linux on it. Okay, provide the SSH password and SSH from the name node to the newer data node. Okay, add the properties, basically copy the files of any data node which is up and running to this new data node so that all the same properties get copied, and then add the properties in the HDFS site.xml. In the HDFS site.xml, you need to add the properties dfs.host and provide a file, an includes file which contains the list of all the data nodes in the cluster. We can certainly add a data node on the fly. Okay, you don't really need to bring down any services, anything into from the cluster. Okay, just add all the data nodes into this includes file, and similarly in the mapred site.xml, you need to add the mapred.hosts. Okay, and same file can be referenced here, which is includes file. Okay, once both are added, just run the command Hadoop dfs admin -report and Hadoop mr admin. Sorry, I got it wrong. Hadoop dfs admin -refresh nodes. Okay, and Hadoop mr admin -refresh nodes. Okay, these needs to run, and then start data node and task tracker on the new data node. This is what you need to do for adding the data node on the fly. Okay, that's a simple way, and you can easily add a new data node as well as task tracker in the newer cluster. Okay, so right now just giving a demo here to show you that the services are now up and running. Let's do a small testing where we'll kill the process of active name node. So let's say I'll kill this process 1592, and now let's see what happens if I do a get service state of name node 2. It should be active, as you can see. while name node 1 should not be running and it should show some exception. Well, yes, you can see this right now. The name node 1 is not currently active. It is showing the retrying connect to server exception. The connection refused exceptions basically, right? So let's start this name node as well. And once this name node starts, it will commit into the standby mode. Okay, so get service state of name node 1 should be in standby and name node 2 should be in active mode. And similarly, you can do for the resource manager as well. So just let's start the resource manager daemons as well. So for the resource manager 1, let's start history server as well as resource manager. You can see resource manager and the history server have started now. And just go to the name node 2 to start the same set of services over there also. Seems resource manager is already playing some role, right? So now let's check out the service of both the resource managers as well. So resource manager 1 currently is an active state and resource manager 2 should be in standby mode, as you can see right now. So both are again up and running. I mean, we can do a whole lot of exploration in this. Again, you can start the jobs and see which cluster, which resource manager is up, and kill the active resource manager. All those stuff can be done, right? So it's up to you, like how much you want to explore. But just to give you an idea, again, Zookeeper is storing the states of both these services, both the resource manager as well as name node. You can see resource manager state store is there, as well as yarn leader election database is also there in the Zookeeper, right? So you can do all these things in this kind of cluster. Okay, I hope it makes some sense to you guys. This is just the high availability thing. Okay, let's do one thing now. Let's go into the upgrade part as well. Let's just check out how you will do the upgrade also in the cluster. So for this upgrade, what I've done is I've got 6 nodes. Okay, I'm going to upgrade a 6 node cluster. Okay, from version 1 to version 2. Let's start all these machines. So in this course, basically what I do always, like I go from basics Hadoop version 1 and then go to the Hadoop version 2 and then start the cluster builds. Okay, I mean Hadoop version 1 cluster is there, then Hadoop version 2 cluster is there. Then you have got federation, high availability, snapshotting features, HBase cluster, Hive, cloud era distribution of Hadoop cluster. All this stuff I covered in this course actually. Manas says, I have completed Hadoop developer course from Edureka. Whether Hadoop administration course will be really helpful for me. Manas, honestly speaking, I have seen a lot of developers doing the administration course. Given the advantages of administration, that you get all the insights of the cluster. I mean, the kind of questions like you are asking that can we add the data nodes on the fly, or how it will impact the cluster, or let's say how will do the upgrades. So the same things get clear when you do the administration activities, right? So if you have got that understanding, it becomes very easy to develop the things. I mean, nobody can really fool you that okay, this is how my impact, this is how your job will impact my cluster. Or let's say you can easily find out that what is the current memory of the cluster, how should I make the best usage of memory, or let's say how should I recommend the my managers that okay, this is the amount of memory or resources we should have in my project, or let's say for my job. Okay, so administration really gives you those kind of insights. Okay, so I would say it will help you, but again, decision will always be yours whether you want to take this or not. Are all the VMs local on your machine? Yes, Palani, all the VMs are local on my machine. Kindly speak a little bit about Hadoop and OpenStack link. So Hadoop and Docker. So Vikash, I mean, they are all connected right now. Okay, if you talk about OpenStack, I don't know if you have heard about Docker. Okay, and Hadoop. So they are now being used for the Hadoop as a service kind of thing. If you want to build an agile Hadoop cluster. Okay, let's say I want to create a 10 node cluster in an agile way. Okay, I want to give just some settings on my screen in the web user interface that okay, I want so and so memory, I want so and so number of virtual machines, and this is the resource requirements I'm looking for. So these softwares, OpenStack, these platforms, and Docker and Hadoop, they actually make very good combination to build such kind of agility into the service. Okay, I'm sure that you have heard about the infrastructure as services from cloud. You must have heard about the platform as a services. You have heard about the software services. But Hadoop as a service, how will you build that kind of a platform? So these kind of softwares actually bring you those agility. Okay, so very good combination and good question. You actually said that. Okay, let's speak about the OpenStack as well. So I mean, it's like again two level up, not even one level, because you need to have understanding of not only Hadoop and its services, but again OpenStack and its services, Docker, or let's say VMware virtual clouds as well. Okay, so very good combination, and people are looking for such kind of things as well in their organizations to have some agile Hadoop clusters. Okay, so what I will do here in this case, I will just do a format. Okay, to bring the Hadoop version 1 cluster. As you can see right now, this is just version 1 cluster. Okay, I have got 6 nodes with name node, job tracker, secondary name node, data node 1, 2, and 3. Now this is only for the HDFS upgrade, guys. Okay, nothing related to the yarn right now. And now what I will do, I will start the DFS services. Okay, with 1 name node, 3 data nodes, and 1 secondary name node. So you can see my all these services are up and running. So I'll put some data, and this will put some data inside my Hadoop distributed file system. Okay, with a replication factor of 3. Now what I want to do is I want to upgrade this cluster. So how will I do that? In Apache Hadoop, you need to have some downtime for this cluster, for this kind of thing right now. So first of all, I will stop all these services. And what I have done here is, in this case, actually, I've gone one step ahead. I've already installed the Hadoop version 2 as well. And right now, if you see, I've got Hadoop version 1 running on this cluster, as well as Hadoop version 2. And some environment variables which are being required for Hadoop version 2 are already being set in this bash profile file. So what I will do here, I will use the bash profile to update in all the nodes, and they will start pointing to my older, newer Hadoop version. Now if I do a Hadoop version command, it will start pointing, but currently there is no service which is running inside my cluster. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to upgrade the metadata first. So I will run the upgrade command, which will upgrade my name node first. And once I will start the SSH, all the data node and secondary name node services, it will upgrade their metadata also. So the idea is, if I see my data, if I check that, okay, whether the name node has been upgraded or not, how I can do? First of all, I can use the Hadoop version command. I can check out the data, whether the data is there or not. So data should be there. You can see the data directory is already there with all the files. Means my data is also there. I am safe. And also I can check out the version of HDFS. So version of HDFS can be seen from the version file of name node, or let's say any data node. So you can see right now the layout version is now -47. So -47 layout version is of HDFS, which actually is for Hadoop version 2.2.0. You can do it for 2.6.0, which has got -56 version, and 2.7.1 has got -60 version. Okay, so any version you can update, whatever is your requirement. Here I was a bit fast in doing this 2.2.0. It was already with me, so I've done this upgrade. Okay, so now all the services are up and running with all the on all the nodes, and you can still start your resource manager, node manager. That will be a newer thing for Hadoop version 2. It's not there in Hadoop version 1. So we are just upgraded our Hadoop version 1 cluster to Hadoop version 2. But there are lots of steps involved in it. I mean, I've just given you a brief idea like how it is being done. How will you recover? How will you recover your upgrade? Let's say in case of failure, how will you take the backup of the metadata? how will you do the performance tuning, how will you actually check whether the upgrade has been successful or not. All of these things will certainly come in more detail in the course. So these are just a few demonstration I wanted to share with you guys in this webinar. And let's talk about some of the common error messages which you need to keep on doing on a daily basis. These are just very common and very few error messages on a high level. Okay, you need to certainly check about these error messages. Server not available. You will not see your data nodes. Sometimes your application vector is not proper. You will see these kind of replicated to 0 nodes instead of 1. File descriptors error, name node startup fails because your version is not same on all the nodes. Exception when initializing the file system because your file system is already there or it is already corrupted, or might be possible that it's not properly built. Could not obtain block because your blocks are corrupted, or let's say there are no blocks of this particular name, or let's say you're not able to get the block locations because your data node is not up and running at that point of time. So a lot of such kind of things can happen during the cluster when the cluster is already running, when the users are running their jobs and all. So these certainly will happen. So this is pretty much I have, guys, in this webinar for you guys. Okay, so if you have any questions around this, please go ahead, please ask whatever question, whatever queries you have. Okay, uh, certainly, as I requested you everyone in the beginning, please do not forget to fill a survey after this webinar. Any compliments, suggestions, or complaints, they're all vital for us. They're all very important. You can let us know uh, what all things we should do for improve ourselves, or let's say to give you much better experience. Okay, so just to give you a headline of the course, guys, for those. Sure, Palani, that's fine. Thank you so much. Uh, so go to the website, and I mean, for those who wants to understand more about this, okay, and just search about the Hadoop administrator. So that's on the same page. You will see a Hadoop administration course. It will give you some idea about how this course is designed. So you can see right now, it's an online classes with 24 hours, assignments of 30 hours, project 20 hours. Well, we don't really do all these things, I'll say, I mean, exactly, but yes, it's more comprehensive than this. Okay. Uh, you can see about the course. Okay, get HBase. Okay, so it's basically a new offer here. Get HBase or MongoDB or Linux self-paced course absolutely free. Now this is something going on. I think I'm not sure is it because of the 15th of August, which is or is it because of the Diwali or whatever? I mean, I'm not sure. So upcoming batches. These are the upcoming batches about this course. The whole curriculum is there. Course objectives. How will you execute the practicals? Prerequisites of this course. Palani says, if I join a class and complete it, do I get a free pass to subsequent classes? I'm not sure about that, Palani. That the best way to get the answer to this question is to reach out to a sales team. Okay, they will help you certainly in best possible way. Cloud data virtual machine is enough to work on Hadoop administration? Not at all, Bala. That's again a misconception which most of the people has, and a lot of people actually teach is via the cloud data virtual machine, which is not really recommended at all for administration sessions. For development, yes, you can go via the cloud data virtual machine, but not for the administration. Okay, because how will you build the 6-node Hadoop clusters? How will you do the practicals? How will you do such kind of things? Kindly speak preferable storage for Hadoop. Software-based storage is efficient for it. When you say because software-based storage, are you talking about just the filers or NFS kind of thing, or are you talking about some hardware, let's say solid-state drives? Well, just to give you an idea, I mean, we use always SAS-based drives for this. Okay, a hardware-based storage is actually required. Physical disk, at least 6 to 8 disk drives each node on data nodes. And I mean, depending upon the capacity of the cluster, if you're looking for, let's say, 100 to 200 terabytes of data, then 12 to 14 disks on each data node is really recommended. Okay, but depending upon the configuration or capacity, other resources on your each node. Okay, but no software-based storage. It should have been physical drives only. Mama, don't raise hand. Just put your questions down there. I'll answer them. No issues. What is your machine configuration? My machine configuration is a bit high, Prani. I'm using a 16 gigabytes RAM here and 1 terabyte of hard disk drive. Well, certainly. I mean, see, if you're looking for a let's say 7 to 8 node cluster, okay, I will help you guys to build it on with the help of 8 gigabytes of memory. Okay, no worries. We can do the practice on 8 gigabytes RAM. And if you have, let's say, got 4 gigabytes RAM, I mean, my minimal I'll say is 3 to 4 gigabytes of RAM at least. Okay, but you can, if you have more than that, then certainly there won't be any problems in building the clusters, or let's say do all the practicals. So here we have got some prerequisites as well. What are the requisites for this course? Course assumes no prior knowledge of Apache Hadoop, Hadoop Cluster Administration, or Java. Okay, so no Java is required, no Java knowledge is required. Basic knowledge of Linux is required as Hadoop runs on Linux. Okay, so Edureka offers a complimentary course on Linux fundamentals to all the Hadoop administration course participants. Okay, for your practicals, guys, who are a bit worried about the practicals, you can set up the virtual machines on the VMware workstations, or let's say Amazon EC2 cloud, which is already having the virtual machines there. You can use their free tier usage to avoid any charges. Okay, and we do have our 24/7 expert support team, which will be available to you to assist you in building the cluster. Yeah, Pradeep, we'll go into the details certainly. Okay, about the sizing of the node, how to do the cluster sizing itself. Okay, in more detail in the classes. Okay. Okay. Question from Manas: whether Spark has any limitations in Hadoop? What kind of limitations, Manas? I mean, see, Spark requires a lot of memory. Okay, you really cannot run a Spark cluster, a good Spark cluster on just the laptop. Okay. Yes, for the practice purposes, you can do that. But again, Spark does all the processing in the memory. So really, if you have got, like, let's say, at least 24 to 32 gigs of RAM on each data node, it's actually being required. Okay. But the experienced guys, they always have like more RAM. So let's say around 256 gigabytes of RAM, or to 512 gigabytes of RAM. Okay, that much of RAM is really recommended to have on each data node. So Pradeep, is your question I mean, for this session, or let's say for this course, or are you asking about, let's say, for something else? Can you just give me a brief idea? I'll let you know. No issues. About this session, or let's say in original, I mean, in production environments, are you asking about? Yeah, sizing of the node in production environments or on the laptops. That's what my question is. So what is you're looking for? Oh, laptop, you can have, like, let's say, I mean, around 700 megabytes of RAM, 700 megabytes to 1 gigabytes of RAM. So here also you can see, just to give you an idea, 1 gigabytes of RAM with 20 gigs of hard disk. Okay, as simple as that. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining in. Hope that it has given you some insights about Hadoop and a day in the life of a Hadoop administrator. Okay, I'm looking forward for you guys to join, and hope to see you in the session. Thank you so much. Cheers. Have a good day. Good night.